Welcome to the Leadership with Vision podcast by Austin Gardner. For more information and resources, visit worldevangelism.net.
All right, I'd like to welcome you to Leadership with Vision. This is Austin Gardner, and I'm here with Jeff Bush, and we are in my office in Vision Baptist Church, and we want to talk to you just a minute today about how to get and keep visitors. You want to tell them why that subject is important to us right now?
Yeah, so we actually have several of the guys that are on the field now that have recently started churches, and other guys that have for a while now. So Patrick Henry is in Argentina, just recently started, I guess, on Easter Sunday, a couple weeks back, about 3 weeks back. And Paul Tawby as well, just about a month ago, started his church, first church in Nepal. Excited about that. Several other guys have as well, at least they're a little bit further in. So I thought maybe this subject will be very helpful on how to get visitors, not just how to get them, but how to get them to come back. So when somebody comes to the church, how can we get them to come back and maybe join into the body there? So,
hey, Pastor Mike Montgomery, good to see you, buddy. Glad I hadn't seen you in a couple of 3 years, but I follow you and I watch what God's doing there in your ministry. Very happy with that. And Jonathan Anderson from Mexico, glad to see you there. Well, when you're starting a church, the hardest thing in the world to get going is to get those first few people in your church. So, once the church is going and once you have some people in church, then it's easier to get people. The hardest way to get started is that very first thing. So we're going to go through some things that you might work there on the field and, that I think might help you there. And then we will talk a little bit about how to keep them in church. So let's start with Jeff and his experience there in La Plata.
So a lot of times we use, Pastor will use a hourglass figure as an example of we want to get a large majority of people, and then from there we have the people that come to church, and then from there, obviously we want to go all the way to the core, which then goes into the leaders, and then the leaders from there, then it goes back out. They're the ones who build the church. They're the ones who do the work.
And they go start other churches. That's one of our biggest goals is to get them out starting other churches, because our goal from the very beginning is not really to build a church as much as it is to start a whole bunch of churches and send missionaries everywhere.
And so you would, y'all that are with us would know, and especially the gentlemen who work close to us, they know very well that our goal is not just a big crowd, because anybody can get a big crowd, although we want to talk about that today. We want to talk about that aspect, but it's not just a bit about the big crowd. We want to have the end game in mind, and that is to train them men that are going to continue on the ministry. When you leave as a missionary, when he leaves, then the ministry has to continue. So we understand that. We understand the training of the men, or we want to talk about that. But right now we want to focus in on when you first start. As Pastor said, that's probably the most difficult portion is
he's playing with it again, and Jeremy Vance will go tell us that's hilarious. I think you better leave that alone.
So
when we do get there, already rating us,
how about that? Sorry, Facebook. Zuckerberg actually called the other day and said we need to work on a couple different things on our podcast. So we're going to work on those.
Did. Pues, hermano Hermógenes Aguilar, qué gusto verte, pero este está en inglés y haremos otro más tarde en español si estás acá en 30 minutos, 45 minutos.
So our pastor doesn't believe in speaking tongues, just the ones that we can interpret.
Yeah, that was to a friend of ours in Lima, Peru, and been a good friend of ours for many years, Hermógenes Aguilar, and so glad to talk to him. So, Jeff, how did y'all get started there in La Plata? How did you get that first group?
So when we started, we found an old building. We began to clean it up, and immediately we started passing out lots of brochures for the big day, the opening service. And so we passed out brochures or little pamphlets that we made up. Of course, we decorated the building, tried to make it a big deal, cake and everything. We tried to put it in the newspaper, on the radio, put up a big old banner across the street, just try to make a whole lot of noise to get the word out that we're starting. And so our first day, we had a handful of people. I think the Lord gave us right up about 20 people, and then we had a group come in from Peru that came to help us. Alberto, good to hear from you. Bendición, hermano. And so, God blessed us from the beginning with that. And then we go into those. So a lot of noise at the very beginning. Obviously, you want to make a lot of noise of getting the people, getting the word out, let them hear what's going on.
Well, what we're going to do is make as much noise as possible at the beginning. So that means, in foreign countries, a lot of times they'll let you put posters up in stores on the corners. They will let you can put them up on telephone poles. You can just about go anywhere and do anything you want to get as much news out so people know what's happening. And the going thing in a South American country is always that corner grocery store. Those little grocery stores, they know everybody. And so if you can get some invitations in there, if you can win the heart of that guy who keeps the store, you will really go a long ways in letting people know about what you're doing and get the word out. And then, I used to say back in the old days, you got to give out at least 10,000 invitations. And back in our day, when I was doing this, you couldn't do it anymore. But I used to start by having a video, and I would give out video presentation or videos. Well, actually, they were reel-to-reel movies, and nobody had at that time. Cable TV wasn't around yet in that area, and so people would come to watch a big screen presentation. You're not going to do that anymore. So some of the guys are using English classes. Jeff is the first one to introduce me and the team of men I work with to English classes. And so Jeff came to Arequipa, and he'd been there a few months, and he said to me, "Do you mind if I start an English ministry?" And I said, "It's a waste of time. Nobody will come." He said, "I think I could get people to come to church." He said, "I think I could get people I could reach out to." And I said, "Well, if you want to waste your time, feel free." And so Jeff started that ministry, and he started going out and getting people to come to English class, and he used the English class to teach Bible and invite them to church, and we had a lot of people. Why don't you kind of tell them what you did there?
Yeah, so we kind of found out the niche, what people were looking for per se in that, and we used that just to get them. So we passed out a lot of invitations saying free English classes taught by North Americans, and we get people to come. During that time, I would tell them once they got there, Lord gave us a lot of people coming, and then we would tell them, hey, if you stay till the end of the semester, this is the last date. Everybody wants to know the end of something, and said if you come to, throughout this time, at the very end of this, we're going to give you a free certificate that says that you passed the first course of English classes at this place taught by Americans, and that gave some of the people actually later used those for for work or whatever. And I don't know if it was that good, but anyway, it got people to come in, and we were able to use that as a tool to preach the gospel.
And some people never came to church, but they did come to the English classes. They found out we didn't have two heads. That's one of the big things I always tell people. When you're trying to reach people, they're afraid to come into your church. They don't know you. They don't know what you're doing there. They may have heard negative things about you. And so anything you can do to get them in the door of the church where they can see you don't have two heads, the ceiling's not going to fall on them, and it might be fun, it might be interesting, is what you want to do to get them to come there.
Danny de Cordova is on here. He said, "I was saved because of that ministry." Praise the Lord.
Amen.
That's a blessing to hear. Thank you for that testimony.
I think that was you starting that, and that's back then, wasn't it?
So praise the Lord. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Thank the Lord for that.
There's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ministries. You have to find out what's good there. We used to take young people. We'd say we're going to go to the park to play soccer and different things. At the end of that, obviously, the point would be that we want to preach the gospel to them. We want to give testimonies there. But you can have banquets. There's all kinds of things you can do. We're talking about the top of the funnel is what we call it, where you do as much as you can, make as much noise as you can to get people to come so that then you could preach to them.
This is not the idea. Hermano Alberto, Jeff will be in Argentina next week. El hermano Jeffrey llega a Argentina la semana que viene, hermano. He has that there on the screen. So the idea, when we talk top of the funnel, we're not talking about you and one individual. We're talking about big noise, big announcements, thousands of flyers. There is what they call the law of big numbers. No matter if you talk to enough people, if you give out enough information, there's always somebody who's going to like what you like. I mean, if you want to start a State Canon church and you gave out 10,000 invitations, you'd find somebody. If you want to start a group that did anything, you could find them. So using the internet today is a very viable way to get your information out. I think one of the best things to do, one of the guys in Chile, Jason Holt, he did this. For 5 weeks, they hit the same 10,000 houses. So you can do that in a place like that. It takes all week long running from house to house, throwing the invitation over the wall. And week 1 was come to our English class, and week 2 was come to our English class, but different. They had 5 invitations. By the last 1 or 2, they're saying come to church. And so everybody is seeing them on the street all the time, inviting people. In other words, they go down this street this week, and next week they're coming right back down that same street. By the 5th week, people are kind of used to it. Here they come. As they meet people people on the street, they're asking for their cell phone number or for their email so they can stay in touch with them. So what you're trying to do is get in touch with as many people as you possibly can. So you got to send out all the invitations you can. You got to invite all the people that you can. Otherwise, you're not going to get people to come. So right here, when we talk top of the funnel, we're not talking about individual to individual. It's not me going out and finding one person. It's me trying to say, I'm throwing a net as wide as I can throw it to invite as many people as I can invite. It's not even the best way, but when you're first starting, it's about the only way because you don't know anybody yet.
You know, when I was younger, we used to go fishing a lot. And a lot of times, so you throw in your line and you only have one hook. And so the way around it, at least we would call it chumming the waters. So we'd take a lot of times, we'd take either some bread or we'd take dog food and we'd throw it all out on the water and everywhere. And man, we'd throw that dog food out. All the fish would come from everywhere and start biting at it. We'd chum the waters. And then we'd throw the hook in there. Man, like that, we can get it. And, in church work, we want to get all these people. Now, once you get all the people, many are going to hear the gospel and maybe somebody's going to get saved. Maybe somebody's going to become the next leader, the guy you're going to disciple. We're not talking about, as Pastor said, we're not talking about that one person at this moment, the discipleship, the leader training. We're talking about how can we chum the waters? How can we do as much as possible so that we can get all these people to come in? So there's a lot of ideas. We can be creative. We can use these different ways so that we can get as many people, make as much noise as possible.
So we have seen people use English classes. You can't do that everywhere. Obviously, every country's not the same. And if you were working in Great Britain, obviously they wouldn't need English classes. Well, they might if they were, foreigners, expatriates coming in there. We used videos and movies back in my day. You can use big meals. We used to have Matthew's banquet where we would invite everybody to invite all their friends to come, and we'd have a meal and we'd get them to come that way. Big days. You should sit down right now and go ahead and write up your entire year's calendar so that you go ahead and start planning big days. So you're going to have a big push, and then you're going to back off and try to follow up. Then you have a big push. You're going to back up and try to follow up with them. So you got a Mother's Day is a very big thing. If you'll spend a little bit of money and invite people, and what we used to do, we give every mother a gift. We would have, that's coming up real quickly, I would go to all the children I had coming. So if you got children coming, children are going to take a long time before they can be in the ministry. So I would take these children and I would say to them, if you'll bring your mother, what we're going to do is we're going to put on a program for them. So we had poems and songs and plays, and then I preached to the mothers, and I gave every child a gift they could give to their mother only if she was present. So every child got up, and then I stood and I said, hey, your children love you. They've been working on making this a big day for a long time, and so I think it's great that you came. They want to give you a gift. And so each went down and hugged their mother and gave them the gift. And then on top of that, the church gave every mother that came a gift. If they weren't present, they couldn't get the gift. And then another thing we did was we would take and we would make maybe 5 big family baskets. So we would go get a big Tupperware bowl and we'd put food in there and all the things to make a basket. Maybe some meat and some beans and some fideos, or how do you say that? Noodles, some rice. We just put a whole bunch of stuff in there in this thing. And then what we did is every mother that came in, she got to put her name in for a drawing. And then after that, also, if they brought a visitor, I would put their visitor's name and their name. So now they had their name in there twice. And so then after a while, we draw and 5 people win. And we give them out. So that's a big one. Go ahead and plan your Mother's Day right now. And you don't have much time, but go ahead and work that one.
So there's automatic big days in your calendar. In other words, Mother's Day and Father's Day, Friends Day, or, Easter, Christmas, whatever. So there's automatic days that your country, the calendar, gives you. And so use those days. And then other days besides that, you could think of other big events. So maybe you have a family conference or a conference on raising children or a conference on creation or whatever it is. You use these different things. And those are kind of like you put up these big, posters or billboards or whatever. You put up these everywhere, pass out these invitations, and people look and they say, man, I would love to know how to do a little bit better raising my kids or in my marriage, or I've always wondered if dinosaurs are real, whatever it is.
That's what you want to do is you want to put out, if you're going to do it on creation, you want to put out something like, were dinosaurs real? What's the Bible say about dinosaurs? Because they don't believe you know anything about that. And so you could put that together. You could get creation videos and use them in your language a lot of times.
There's all kinds of different ideas. We got to be creative. So we use the calendar. Our conferences are 2 different ways. Now, I realize this might be when you're already started in the church, but even before, you can look and say, okay, okay, throughout this time, what can I do according to the calendar to make these big days? What can I do? But when you're starting, you're going to say, even if you start with a big conference, well, right after that, you follow up on these people. You're getting you got all these names, all these numbers. You're going to start following up with these people immediately. We're not talking about your preaching exactly. We're saying you're trying to get as many people as possible, the feeding of the 5,000 or whatever. And obviously not every one of those guys are going to listen, but you're getting all of them there in one spot so that you can preach to them, and then you can follow up with them after that.
I want to remind you that your goal is to get the word out as many times as you can. You want it to be where everybody knows about your church. They might not like you, they might not want to come, but they'll be like, oh yeah, good night. Yeah, we've seen those guys. They're always littering around here. They're always putting out their literature. They're always inviting people. They're always out on the street. And you'll put stuff in there like, do you know what's going to happen when you die? I had one of the conferences I did was I did it for the Day of the Dead, which is right after Halloween. And I said, what does the Bible say about death? How's it going to be when you die? What happens when you die? How would you like to know what the Bible says about what happens 1 second after you're dead? And then I went into what happened to lost people, what happened to saved people. Of course, you have food. You always food. We're in a rich area, but we have food here, even at Vision. People come to church for that. So I would just strongly suggest that you consider getting some food for any event that you have. You need a budget for outreach, a big budget for outreach, because you got, especially at the very beginning, you're going to have to invite thousands of people to get dozens to come. You need to understand right now that you got to invite them not once, but they say it takes 7 touches. So they got to see you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. You got to go out there until they say, hey, I think I'll go and check that out.
Even on the invitations that you print, we would put a banner across the street. It was allowed in our country. Put a banner across the street, and even on the banner or on the invitation, we would say, free refreshments afterwards, free Coke and a hot dog for everyone who comes or whatever. And that might seem something very simple for you, but that would call some attention. And so you want to do all that you can to get them to come.
One of the things I'd like to tell people all the time was, if you come, we'll chew the fat. We will chew the fat about that. I love having a Friday evening youth meeting and telling them it'll be a time when you get to ask me anything you want to ask me. I'm the American. I'm from another country, and so it's a way to talk to me and me to be able to answer it. And I'm going to make it fun and do whatever I can to help with that.
Dani de Cordova says, I was learning English with a classmate when a classmate told me about the English classes at a church where a North American was teaching. I went and someone invited me to a youth picnic where I heard the gospel. Well, praise the Lord.
So people spread the word. So English class got Donnie to come to church. And so I would think about using something like an English class. You could have anything. I saw the Seventh-day Adventists in Peru used to put out big tents. They'd spread the word all over the city that they were going to have a health conference. And they were going to talk to people about how to improve their diet, how to improve their health, how to lower blood pressure. And they never even said who they were or what they were doing, but it was nothing more than the Seventh-day Adventists drawing people, because, Peruvians are very concerned about their health. And so if you talk to them about fitness, you talk to them about exercise, and you talk to them, but then what's the most important thing they need? They need to know Jesus, and they need peace. And so you can use that in a big way to draw people. So let's get a lot of invitations. Let's get them out a lot of times. Never think, well, I gave out 10,000 invitations. 10,000 invitations is nothing. Maybe 10,000 invitations every week for months, but in other words, you want to just sow the seed over and over. If you sow a little, you reap a little. Yeah. If you give out a few, you'll get very few. The more you give out, the more it starts to double and triple, and people start coming. And when they come, you've got to make sure that this is an exciting place to be. It's the thing to talk about. It's fun. It is enjoyable. You can't be some real, I don't know what to say here, tight, uptight, worried, strict attitude. You want to be like, I got the greatest news in the world. This is the happiest environment you could ever be in. You're going to love this.
So when they come into church, automatically, put some music in the background that's playing very lightly instrumental. Make it look like a, nice lit up place that it's a friendly atmosphere.
Don't have dim lights.
You want it to be a friendly atmosphere with the music. Absolutely everything that's happening. You want them to know, hey man, these doors are open. We would would love for you to come in. And, so we make all this noise, but then how do we get them to stay? How do we get them to keep coming? So, Pastor, maybe we can say a couple things on some of these guys. Man, they're big events, and we want to push those big events. Be creative, use your calendar, think of other things, get a hold of some books, use big ideas there in the city that everybody likes. But then how do we get them to come back? What do we do to get visitors to keep coming back to our church?
The truth is that they need to like you before they even like Jesus. And as bad as that sounds, they are coming out of a pagan background. They're coming out of a lost background, and they're afraid of you, and they got their guard up. They're blocking themselves, and they're apprehensive. And so you have got to have a big smile. You got to be laughing and joking and cutting up. You got to make it fun to be there. I'm not talking about preaching a joke. I'm talking about before the service, after the service, even when you're shaking hands with people. Make it exciting and enjoyable to be in the room. The music is lively. The conversation is lively. The snacks are fun. And you teach everybody that's working with you, man, be around smiling and having a good time, because you are setting an environment. And then hang around. Don't leave. And chew the fat. And don't be an American. Don't be a dumb American. Be somebody who loves them and loves their culture. I saw a guy from southern Chile. He posted today on Facebook about how much he loved southern Chile, where he was, and how much he loved the mountains, and how much he loved the coast, and how much he loved the people, and how much he loved the wood stoves that they used to heat their houses with. He just was bragging on the country. That's what it takes. If they see a foreigner that loves their place and loves them and cares about them, they'll want to come back. You need to be so warm, so inviting, so excited that they want to be around you.
It's interesting that when Jesus talked to the woman at the well, and she ended up leaving from there, going and telling all these men and all these people, and they came, and later they come back at the end of the chapter, and they hear, and they said, we came because of your word, but we ended up believing totally because of his word. So she was the vehicle that took them to Jesus. If she wasn't there, if she didn't tell them, they wouldn't have heard. But at the end, they accepted Christ. And so you and I are the vehicle. So as we stand up there, as we preach, as we introduce, as we let them come in, our family stands there, put a big old smile, talk about their country, love where you're at, be a friendly person, come out of your normal shell or whatever, and love these people. God's put you there to minister to them. So have a good time while you're doing it.
Thank you, Teresa, for listening while you could, and I hope you'll catch up later. Let me say this. Get their information. Get their phone number or get their email, but get you some way to stay in touch with them. Also, don't let them leave without something in their hands. Gospel tract, something about who your church is and what you're doing, something that's interesting, something that tells about all the services that you have, so that they know, you know what? You can take your kids to this. You know what? They got things for couples. They got things for young people. They got special activities they're going to be doing for the children. In other words, you got to, when they come in, you cannot let them leave unless they have in their hands everything they need to make that fun to be there and to know they can go back and it'll be something different.
I understand very much. You might say, hey, that would be great if I had a team of people, if we were all together. I very much understand that. When we first arrived to Argentina, it was my wife and I, and we had two little girls, our daughters, a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so I understand that very much. And so our idea was, I said, Mindy, you take those from 11 down, I'll take from those from 12 up. And so Mindy would play the piano, she'd get the kids, and she'd walk in the back and watch the nursery and be with the kids. And I did the singing, I did took up the offering, the announcements, the preaching, the invitation, everything. I understand that very much. But you know what? Even little by little, God's going to begin to send people. But even if it's just you two, you can still do a whole lot. You've got to start somewhere. So be happy, be thankful, be sweet to those people, love where you're at. And it'll start working out. God will begin building your team. But we want to get those people back. Big day, lots of noise, get the people, and then begin to bring them back. So some different ideas on how we bring them back. One idea, Pastor, I learned from you, we started getting the Beams Bibles. And whether you get Bibles sent from someone, Fellowship Tract Leader, wherever, or you purchase them in your country, we used to tell people, if you come 3 Sundays in a row, we'll give you a free Bible. And that was, my idea was, if I can get them 3 Sundays after this one, then I can almost get them hooked that they're going to continue coming back. Because I'm going to talk to them about, hey, we've got something for your kids. Hey, we want to love you. Man, this is a good place to be in and grow up in. And so that gives me 4 opportunities. They want the Bible. I want them to keep coming back. And I would love for them to have a Bible either way. So that was one of the ways that we were able to get them to keep coming back with the Bible.
And put many hooks in the water. See, you want Sunday school and church and Sunday night and midweek and youth night. You want as many things coming, because if somebody says, well, I can't come on Sunday morning. Hey, no problem. We have a different service on Sunday night. Oh, I can't come on Sunday morning or Sunday night. Well, midweek, we have something else. Oh, what else? Well, Friday night, we have youth night. And then you want to plan some things for children once you have somebody that can operate that. I don't ever like to do it until I have somebody, but you want to have as many hooks in the water. It's a mistake, in my opinion, to go down to a few services, because when you have less services, you have less opportunities. Right. When Patrick Henry started up in Argentina, he had some people that came on Sunday morning. Different people came on Sunday night. He's only like 2 weeks old in his church right now. And so I would just challenge you to have a lot of things going on so that people have different opportunities to come. Always have big days and always show them why you want them back. And as soon as they come to church, is get them involved in discipleship. Mm-hmm. So get you some lessons. We use a thing called Foundations, one of our men wrote, but you get you something that you can use and say, hey, can I get with you this week? And maybe you could go to this restaurant and I'll buy a cup of coffee, or I can come to your house, or you can meet me here at the church, but we're going to talk about the Bible. We're going to talk about these things. And there's when you go over the gospel with them again, and you explain all these basic things about Jesus, and you're just praying all along that God will do something, save people, change lives.
So when we're going to get these people to come back, we made all this noise, we have this big group, we want them to come back. Well, we said we can give away Bibles, but make that, Pastor just said, make that extra step and say, hey, can I come by and visit you this week, and maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and talk a little bit about the Bible? You start that discipleship. That's another way. The Bible is a way of getting them to come back. The discipleship is a way of getting them to come back. We also would do, we would send them a letter, a personal letter, and I would sign it, and we would go deliver that to them.
Because they don't even have mail delivery.
You know, when I was in Argentina, a lot of times they don't get the mail at the house besides the, publicity from a restaurant or from a, somewhere like that. So we would go and someone would visit. I'd have them fill out a card that, remember, we want that contact information, even if it would say, I just want your information with your phone number so that I can pray for you, that we can keep in contact. That would be a good idea. So we would write this. And I remember more than once we would take it. And actually, one of the pastors in Argentina, he's there now, and he said that he came the second time to church, and the reason he came back is he said nobody had ever given me a personal letter before. I was so impressed with that personal letter that I wanted to come back. And now he's not just going back, but he's actually a pastor, and obviously God did a lot of work, but that was something just to bring him back. So you're doing everything possible. When God sends you somebody, now is when you got to start working on it. Now you're really, you're helping that person out. So you're doing all these different things to keep them coming back to the church.
And don't despise the day of small beginnings. Amen. You got to realize you don't know that one guy in your church is going to end up being a pastor.
Amen.
You don't know what you got going. So love them, help them, work with them, stay encouraged about that. Be excited about working with them, and you don't know what's going to happen. So plan your calendar. Go ahead and get your calendar. Get every big day. Get country big days like Independence Day, like Day of the Child, Labor Day, Memorial Day, whatever it is that you can come up with, and get those on your calendar. Go ahead and get a Holy Week revival around Easter. That's something that we would do big in South America. Maybe something special, a Christmas play at Christmas, but come up with different things you're going to do and set up a calendar so that you can continue to work with them and have something exciting. And then pick other days that you'll just have, because you want at least one big Sunday every month so you can get them to come.
Amen. Okay, we've got a couple other things that I want to say here, but before, we've got a question. Dustin Brown, thank you so much for submitting that. What method of contact do you think is best for follow-up?
Well, I think the best one for follow-up is whatever you can get from them. In our area, it's pretty hard to get them to let you come to their house. So we send emails and we send text messages, and we often don't get a street address. I can't even send a paper letter. But I would do every one. If they give me their email, they're getting an email. If they give me their phone number, they're getting an email and a text. If they give me the address, they're getting all three and maybe a visit. So we're going to do any way we can. So I just think personal contact, them knowing that you're interested, is a big deal.
I have a friend who's in Texas. He's a pastor, and I went out there a while back. He told me the way, he said, I can never get them to fill out cards. And he said, so I started getting these $5 Chick-fil-A cards, and we'd give out the contact cards, and we'd say, when church is over, bring that card to the back, and the pastor wants to say hello. And if you give that card to the pastor or, pastoral staff, whoever, then he's going to give you this card, and they would give it. And he said, once we start giving those $5 Chick-fil-A cards out, he said, you don't know how many people started filling them out. Whatever you have to do to get that contact information, I realize it might be different in the United States than it is on the mission field, but you know what? Just do whatever you have to do. You want to follow up with those people.
All right. So calendar, clean building, cool environment, so that everything's nice when they come into church. Great follow-up, big fun time with them while they're there in the meeting with you. Get in touch with everybody you can. in, get them involved in discipleship, get a lot of hooks in the water so they can come at different times. Do all you can do so you can spend as much time with them as possible.
So we have another question, Pastor. Any recommended contact database software? Can you tell them what we use?
We use Simple Church, but that's here in America, and this is probably primarily for overseas guys. I think most people probably use just plain old Excel or a numbers program or something of that nature. If you're here in America, we're using Simple Church, and that's worked very well for us. It keeps up with who we've contacted and what we've done with them, and I think it's simplechurch.com. I believe you can find that.
We used, in Argentina, it was pretty simple, so we used an Excel, and then we used also the
Google Docs.
Right, yeah, and then the literal cards, and we would take those cards with the letter, and that's how we'd go visit them.
So any of that works. It's not as much about the system as it about doing whatever you set up. Set something up and make it work. Set something up and make it work.
I would say another quick thing to throw in there would be get them plugged in somewhere. So realize, this doesn't have to be, you say, well, I just started 2 weeks ago, or I don't even know if this guy is saved, or at least he's not growing, he's not serious. But you know what? There's some things in church that you can do that you don't have to be spiritually mature. You can pass out a bulletin, or you can be there early just to, a lot of times we tell our men, hey, 15 minutes before the service, we're going to pray together, just the men, and you'd come. And I just did that. Yeah, we'd have prayer, but we'd also get them there on time. Maybe you could say, we serve tea and coffee from 6:30, or excuse me, from 6:15 all the way up to 7:50, and we're going to cut it off. If you come during that time, we start at 7, but up until 10 till, you can have free coffee and cookies or whatever it is. Get different ideas. Have them come to get plugged in and serve that coffee or whatever.
And tell them you want to know them, you want to get to know them, you want to spend some time with them. The main thing is they need to like you. They need to love you. You need to be interesting. You need to be exciting. You need to be the person they want to talk to.
We would even have fellowships once a month, or once a quarter on the 5th Sunday of the month, and have some people. A lot of times, obviously, at the beginning, we were the ones who brought, and it wasn't anything expensive, just some cookies, just some tea and other things. But remember, you're the one who's giving all these ideas. You're the one who's putting forth all the effort. And as Pastor said, you have to be a likable person. You have to be somebody who's willing. You're the fisherman. That means you're patient. That means you're willing. That means you're dedicated. That means you're consistent. You're going to go out there and you're going to do it. You're going to have a good attitude about it, and it's going to work out.
And you have to be up. I don't care how discouraged you are. You cannot let anybody know that. Get along with God, and you can go in the room excited and pumped up, and be telling them all the great stuff that's going on and everything that's happening, and smile and be friendly and shake hands. And no matter how much you want to cry, don't you dare, because if you're kind of pooty, they're all going to be that way. You need to be excited, and they're going to think it's the greatest thing that ever happened.
Sometimes, I'm sorry, Pastor, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sometimes I think we want to minimize with the idea of, well, I'm just completing my duty of being on the mission field. I think we need to have that urgency about us. God sent me here. God sent me here for a purpose. There are people who are going to hear. There's people who are going to get saved. And when we get that fire inside of us, when we really believe that and we get alone with God, it'll change the way we preach. It'll change the way we look at people and that we greet each other, that we greet people, because we're looking at them thinking, you know what, I've been praying for people to come here. You might be the one I was praying for. You know what, this message God gave, man, I'm excited about it. God put me here for a purpose. And I mean, it wasn't here for 3 or 4 people. That's not to, belittle anything, but God put me here to do a work. And I want to see something big. I want to see something great. I want to see God work. And if you believe that, it's gonna seep out of the pores of your body. It's gonna come out when you preach and when you talk. People are gonna get on that. People are gonna get on that bandwagon. They're gonna ride all the way with you. So, sometimes we need to get alone and get excited ourselves.
Pray and pray and pray, and then go out expecting.
Amen.
Well, Dustin Brown asked, how far out do you evangelize? And if you were in Peru, I'd say 10 blocks. If you're in South America, I don't think you have to go very far to get away. You don't need to get very far away. In America, I think 10 miles is a long ways. If you draw a radius of 10 miles, some people will live that far away, but 10 miles as the crow flies could be 15 miles to get to church. I tell our guys we want to visit within 3 miles, maybe at the most 5 miles in a radius, unless somebody visits our church. And so if I would just tell you, look where Walmart is. Walmart in this area, there's a Walmart everywhere. And if you can't get there in 15 or 20 minutes, then that's too far away. Where's the grocery store? Where's the gas station? In other words, people want things close and in hand. And you're going to say, well, they'll drive a long ways to work, but you're not paying them. You're not paying them. They don't need you. And so you want to just work mainly the area you're in.
When we were in South America, something that really bothered me was everybody knew where the big Catholic churches churches were. They become landmarks, like over there at St. Mary's or whatever, on that side. And I thought, you know what? We're going to do that. We're going to become a landmark. So when people say that gas station, they're going to say that one church by the gas station or whatever, makes so much noise, even if it's not a big building. And I'm not saying, get all this money and make a big old building or whatever, but you have so many activities. You have so much going on. The doors are always open. You're a friendly person that after a while, because of all these signs, the invitations, I remember we sent all the Bible college students out one day, and it was so exciting for me because they went all to the big plaza and they were passing them out. And this one girl come back and she said, you know what? We all went out there, and she said, I went to give this guy, and he looked at it, he said, he said, no. I've already had one of those. I know who you guys are. You guys are that church over there. And she said, Pastor, and she was very genuine. She said, we need to make another track that's not blue. Because they already know. They've all seen the blue tracks. And I said, well, praise the Lord. Let's get a white one, and do whatever. But make it so much, you flood the area so much. God has put you in that area. Bust the seams right out. So do all that you can in that area, the vicinity that God has given you.
So thank y'all very much for listening to us today. And it's been fun to talk to you and to hear from you. We'll be back in just a little while with a Spanish podcast for our Spanish friends. And we'll be back with other podcasts for you also. Thank you so much. Help us spread the word about this. Jeff, why don't you tell them about the camp that's coming up and also the marriage retreat?
So we have the camp coming up June 19th through the 23rd. That'll be in North Georgia, Trenton, Georgia, and we would love to have you there. You can jump online, visionmissions.com/event/camp. Just jump online, visionmissions.com. You'll find out more about it. The cost, anything, we'd be glad to help you. You can email us, whatever. And then July, I believe the exact date's the 24th, Pastor, if that's right, 24th to 26th, it seems like. But you can find out more. We'll have our marriage retreat, and that's always a fun time. It's always a good time, a healthy time for our families, for our marriages. So that's the two big events that we have coming up, our camp in June, and then the marriage retreat that's in July.
And this may surprise you, but actually camp and revivals and vacation Bible schools and things like that will really draw people into anything you're doing like that spreads the news. But anyway, thank you so much for being with us today. We've enjoyed talking to you. Ask you to help spread the word and invite other people to listen. And thank you so much. And we wish that God would greatly bless you. This has been Leadership with Vision with Jeff Bush and Austin Gardner.
You've been listening to Leadership with Vision by Austin Gardner. Visit worldevangelism.net to discover more podcasts and useful articles.